Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar La Mesa Redonda, The Round Table, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA la Radio. Bienvenidos amigos a USA la Radio. Estamos en La Mesa Redonda, les habla Fernando Mendez, Christian Lacey controlando el tablero desde la ciudad del amor fraternal, from the city of brotherly love. Y aquí vamos con las noticias del día. Empezamos con un anuncio de que Pfizer dice que tiene la vacuna, tiene posibilidades de ser la respuesta, por lo menos una de ellas. 90% de la vacuna aparentemente es efectiva. 90% of that Pfizer vaccine seems to be effective. So that's tremendous news. That's what we need at this point in order to get out of this cycle of illness and crisis, economic crisis, and so on. But at this point, we are all celebrating. Well, many of us, except for 71 million people. That is not a small number of people. 71 million who voted for Trump, but the rest of us celebrating Joe Biden's victory. And today, the president-elect and his team announcing the formation of a panel to deal with COVID-19. Okay, so that's one huge, gigantic difference right away, sort of setting the tone for the Biden era. We take COVID-19 seriously. It's not a hoax. It's not a conspiracy by Democrats and the media. Here are the numbers. Around the world, 50 million people have contracted the virus, more than 50. 1,256,200 have died. In the United States, total cases, 29,993 in the US. And they keep growing, those cases. We are under a wave of cases that each day is adding another 1,000 to the total. Of those, 239,449 have died in the United States. You would think with that evidence, with hospitals complaining, where doctors and nurses are complaining that the number of people arriving is increasing exponentially, you would think that this administration would have taken this more seriously. In Philadelphia, 47,675 cases. People who have died, 1,908. Almost 2,000 people have died in Philadelphia. But again, announcement, Pfizer, COVID-19 vaccine is 90% effective in the people they have tested, thousands of people. If the results prove true, the vaccine will be on a par with vaccines that they have used for other illnesses. So let's be hopeful. That was the message from President-elect Joe Biden in his most recent speech, that he represents hope over fear. The Electoral College vote in the final count, 279 votes for Joe Biden, 214 for Donald Trump. That's not the official final count, because there are a couple of states, Georgia and Arizona, where the results have not been confirmed. Also, Pennsylvania, because the count is not final. Enough votes in Pennsylvania to decide the national election. We are proud to be in Philadelphia, where a great majority of the vote went to Joe Biden, giving him the presidency. So there is a cartoon of the city view of Philadelphia with a note saying, a caption saying, to the world, you are welcome. The place where bad things happen, as Donald Trump announced to the world, from the place where bad things happen to the world, you're welcome. We gave Joe Biden the final push. But now, as Mr. Biden said, the battle for the soul of this country begins. His speech asked the citizens to hope again. Celebrations here in Philadelphia, in New York, all over this country. Celebrations in Paris with bells ringing. It's a lovely sound. Have the bells of Paris ring to celebrate Biden's victory. In London, the celebration was with fireworks. And the celebration that we saw where the president elect and his vice president, Kamala Harris, who made history in her own way, first woman vice president, the first Black woman to be elected to vice president, first Asian woman because she is Indian, partly Indian. She made history. And both were present with their families at that celebration in Wilmington, where there were fireworks, beautiful fireworks with the names of both candidates, both the president and the vice president in the sky, in the fireworks. The streets of this country were full of people singing and dancing, celebrating Biden's victory from New York to California. Trump's people protested in Arizona, demonstrating in front of the building where the votes were being counted, accusing the Biden campaign and the vote counters. In some instances, like in Arizona, Republicans, of cheating, adding just enough votes to keep Biden on top during the counting. That's where the Trump supporters are claiming that it's very suspicious, according to them, that each time the vote increased for Biden, just to keep him ahead of Donald Trump in the count. What they don't say, and what we will comment on later on, is that was the strategy from the start for the Trump team, to cast doubt on the results of the election because they knew they were losing, they knew they were behind. I wish we could just forget about all this and move on, move ahead, and we will in the days after this, when we have in front of us the agenda for the new president and what they plan to do. We already know one thing. One of the first acts of this new president is to create a panel of scientists of sterling reputations, a panel to deal with COVID, to deal with the crisis. So, but in the meantime, the Trump supporters are supporting this president in his claims of fraud. He says this election was stolen from him. He attempted, as we know, to steal the election. We are not quite sure what the plan was. Why did he, in the middle of the night, when the vote was not official, the results were not official anywhere, except in a couple of states where he was ahead in the count, he came on television and announced that he was the winner. That was dishonest. That was a case of trying to steal the election. So there is no evidence of voting fraud anywhere in the country. There were cameras and observers everywhere. At one point in Pennsylvania, in one instance, the observers were allowed to stand closer. They had complained that they were too far from where the people who were checking the votes, where they're counting the votes were. And so they complained of being too far from them, so they were allowed to get closer to the proceedings. At no point was anybody impeded access to the venues, which is one of those claims that the Trump team is making everywhere. More vociferously, Rudy Giuliani. En voz muy alta, Rudy Giuliani va por todo el país declarando que esta elección fue robada, que el ganador fue Donald Trump, contrario a toda la evidencia que hay a través del país. No hay en ningún caso evidencia de que hubo fraude, pero eso es lo que el señor Giuliani está diciendo por todo el país. So, the Biden-Harris transition team is beginning to work. The pundits believe that Biden will have one of the most diverse cabinets ever. If he is responding to what he said, that he owed a lot to the Black vote. He owes a lot to the Black population in this country. He owes a lot to Latinos. He owes a lot to women who voted for him in large numbers. Women and minorities were the key to Biden's victory. Biden announces the formation of the COVID task force, a panel made up of scientific experts, epidemiologists, pulmonologists, infectious disease experts. It's a very distinguished panel. I recognize some of the names, Dr. Ezekiel, who's right here at Penn, a couple of other well-known names. I saw a couple of Hispanic names. So we will see, because now an administration that actually knows for sure that this COVID is a threat to the stability of the nation, to the economy of the nation, they will help us to get out of this. And so anyway, Mr. Biden asked us for hope. We are hoping. He won by more than 74 million. First-time voters prefer Biden by 66% to 33%. That's most of the 19 million new voters. 19 million new people voted in this election. No wonder we broke all records for the number of people participating. Trump won a majority of white voters, 57% to 42% for Biden. So it's more evidence that minorities, women, that we gave Biden the presidency. Trump lost the popular vote, again, as he did in 2012 against Hillary Clinton. Trump is the first president of the US to lose popular vote twice. But here's a caveat. So Donald Trump is no longer the president. Somebody should tell him that. But Trumpism, this phenomenon that many think is an aberration, is not gone. It is a big part of who we are, believe it or not, at least for 71 million people. He tapped into a deep part of what voters in this country fear, what our society is. It's a deep part of what is in the hearts of our citizens. If this man, so full of hatred and prejudice, he's a misogynist. If this man receives 71 million votes, that means he's not alone. That means 71 million people like what he thinks, what he does, the way he has governed. So he did tap into a deep part of the soul of this country. And that is the battle that Biden announced in his speech. That is a battle for the soul of this nation. How do we change the minds of so many Americans? How do we make those 71 million, maybe not all of them, but how do we look into the minds of these people and say, this is another view of life. This is another view of government. This is another view of the people who are trying to come to the United States looking for the American dream. They are not rapists. They are not terrorists. They are looking for the things that we have. They are looking for an opportunity, which is what most of us as immigrants come to this country looking for, a chance to have a better life, to create a family, to look for educational opportunities, for business opportunities. Majority of women voted for Biden, 56% to 43%. A fact Trump knew, and that is the reason he begged them. Remember that speech in which he says, women, please like me. Well, by a vote of 56 to 43%, they didn't like you that much. But again, enough women, enough white men, enough Hispanics and Blacks voted for Trump. I think a very small percentage of the 71 million is composed of minorities. But enough of them that it distorted the initial count in Florida. You might recall that it looked like Florida was swayed by Hispanics, by the vote of Hispanics for Mr. Trump. So we're going to take a brief pause here in Úsala Media. Les habla Fernando Mendez, Christian Lacey controlando el tablero. Esta es la mesa redonda. Regresamos en un momento.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Señores oyentes de Úsala Media, estamos aquí de nuevo con la mesa redonda. Les habla Fernando Mendez desde la ciudad del amor fraternal, in the city of brotherly love. Christian Lacey controlando el tablero. Just one quick note here. Congressman Jim Clyburn is being credited with starting the wave of Black support for Biden across the country. So Biden is our president-elect. Donald Trump still refusing to admit defeat, and he's not leaving the White House. Christian has a clip for us about what is happening with the president from the point of view of John Oliver. Christian, here it is.
All these pointless lawsuits are clearly going to cost a lot of money, which is probably why the campaign has spent the last few days frantically trying to fundraise for them, emailing supporters in an increasingly aggressive manner.
The Trump campaign has filed lawsuits in multiple states following President Trump's unsubstantiated claims of widespread voter fraud. And since lawsuits cost a lot of money, last week tonight's John Oliver explored the emails the campaign is sending to raise the necessary funds.
This is your final notice. So far, you've ignored all our emails asking you to join us in defending the election. You've ignored Team Trump, Eric, Lara, Don, the Vice President, and you've even ignored the President of the United States. And final notice for what exactly? To not give them money?
This is only the latest fundraising snafu with supporters, as just last month, the Trump campaign came under fire for auto-selecting recurring payments from donors. But one of the more surprising things that Oliver unearthed in the email was that while some of the money raised will go towards funding lawsuits, a huge portion will actually go to paying off massive campaign debt.
In the fine print, it mentions that rather than funding lawsuits, half of any contribution will be used to retire debt from Trump's re-election campaign, which is both completely unsurprising and also not even the worst thing he's ever asked his supporters to do, because that would obviously be when he made them watch him do this dance.
So that is John Oliver, who's entertained many of us with his take on the Trump administration throughout this. He has a very refined sense of humor, sarcastic, ironic. And now in this case, yes, he is commenting on the fact that the Trump campaign is still collecting funds, threatening his supporters. This is the last notice, he said in that memo that Oliver read. The last notice for them, or the last chance to contribute to his campaign. And in the small print, his supporters can read that whatever money they contribute to Mr. Trump will go to pay for the campaign debt, not for what they claim the funds are for, which is to support the lawsuits around the country. Mr. Giuliani, Trump's lawyer, is a big part of that effort around the country, filing lawsuits with false allegations of fraud. But that is what the money is going to. The money is going to pay for Giuliani's efforts to convince the courts that the election was stolen from Mr. Trump, that there is fraud everywhere. Even though, up to now, up to this point, as we are speaking to you, There is not 1 ounce of evidence. There is not 1 iota to prove that there was fraud anywhere. And you don't have to believe me, you don't have to believe what you hear from the media. There is plenty of video available in which you can see how the votes are counted. There is video that was present all the time. There were observers, Republican as well as Democrats, in all these venues. And if there is any cheating, somebody must be supremely expert at doing something that we cannot perceive. There is no evidence, zero evidence of fraud anywhere. Even some of the claims that Mr. Giuliani, in an interview with Hannity on Fox News, what else? He claimed that observers for the GOP had been thrown out of one of the venues, and that turned out to be false. Reporters from Fox who were present there said that no such thing happened. So, one more note on Latinos. They flipped Arizona. They gave Biden Nevada. Tremendous number, record number of Latinos in Texas. But here is the problem. In the initial report, as the votes were coming in Florida was looking like it was going to be the beginning of a Trump landslide, because there was such an overwhelming number of votes in favor of President Trump. It looked as though the Latino vote was going to go to Mr. Trump. But in fact, in Texas, the Latino vote was 70 to 75% for Biden. And that was across the country. The majority of Latinos voted for Biden. Latinos, Black, women. That was the vote that gave Biden the presidency. Trump gave his last speech, or the last one we have heard, before the defeat. In front of the media and the world, Trump recited lies and more lies about how the process is fraudulent and rigged. Imagine that, the whole world was listening to this. In the cradle of democracy, Mr. Trump, the president of the United States, was claiming that his defeat was fraudulent, that the election was rigged to favor Joe Biden. He basically attacked the democratic system. His son, Rudy Giuliani, and other supporters repeated the same lies, that the counting of the votes in secret with no GOP observers was taking place. A two-pronged approach to ask that all the votes be counted in Arizona, but to stop the counting in Pennsylvania. So they had a contradiction immediately, a dilemma. What do we do? Which one is true? Should we continue the count or should we stop the count? They chose to lie about both. If the count of the legal votes continues, I win, said Mr. Trump. If the count of the illegal votes continues, I lose. Except there are no illegal votes. The votes that were counted in those last days were sent by mail, and in at least one case in Pennsylvania, the reason the counting was late was because the GOP legislature designed the process that way. Think about that. The GOP in Pennsylvania, they have been in control of the legislature in Pennsylvania and Harrisburg. They designed the process this way so that the votes of the day of November 3rd would be counted first, knowing that the votes that were coming by mail, the absentee votes, might favor Biden. And in fact, that was the case. It was a clear strategy to have the vote cast the same day to be one thing. Remember that Trump claimed prematurely to have won before the final count, before there was any official results. He was claiming victory. And then the delayed vote could be judged to be suspicious because we have seen it has taken this long. Pennsylvania is still counting. We had enough votes to put Biden over the top. That is the basis of Giuliani's case, a despicable strategy from a man who sold his soul to Trump in exchange for free golf and free hotels. That is Rudy Giuliani, the champion of 9/11. How low can an idol fall? Mr. Giuliani has become a tool of Donald Trump to undermine democracy, to undermine our faith in the electoral system, and he will continue. That's what that money is for. That's what they want to. Remember, if you are contributing to that campaign, read the small print. Half of that money that you are contributing will go to pay for the debt that the campaign incurred. Not for the vote, not for the battles in court. But still, Trump refuses to accept defeat. When Biden's victory was announced on NBC and other networks, Trump was on his golf course in Virginia. In fact, he played golf twice over the weekend. And he was not seen or heard from for a long time. If he had won, he would have been on his telephone with tweeters for hours. The last official act of Trump campaign was a hastily called press conference at the Four Seasons Lawn Care Company in a parking lot next to a pawn shop close to I-95. Trump thought it was the Four Seasons Hotel. The hotel sent out a message saying that it was not at the Four Seasons Hotel. It was at the Four Seasons Lawn Care Company in a parking lot. That's where Giuliani has what could be his last official act on the campaign trail. So just remember, read the small print. Those funds will go in part to retire the debt. So far, no announcement from Trump regarding a concession statement and the needed cooperation for a peaceful transition of power. Humorist Bill Maher, his prediction that Trump would not depart the White House willingly is becoming true. He's not alone because Trump's former lawyer, has written that the president has a plan. I don't know. He knows Trump better than many people. He was at Trump's side when many of these shenanigans began. When many of these illegal payments that Trump made to a porn star and other people, Mr. Cohen was by his side. So it's not difficult to believe that that is, in fact, what happened. That the president is planning to do the following. The president is going away at Christmas time, and he will never come back to the White House. The president will leave at Christmas time. You heard it here first. Well, second probably. The president will leave the White House at Christmas time, and he will never return. At this point, nobody knows for sure if the president will even take part in the transition, in the swearing-in ceremony. That's how bitter this president is. That's how much lacking in class he is. So far, let's remember, there's no announcement from his campaign about any concession speech, what he will say to us, to the world, that there will be a transition of power, that he admits defeat. That's what Mr. Cohen says, that the president will never see himself as a loser, that's the one thing that he cannot do. So Michael Cohen, former lawyer for the president, predicts when and how loser Trump leaves the White House. He may leave the White House for next month's Christmas break, never return. I wouldn't be shocked if there is no concession speech at all, Cohen told MSNBC. My theory is that Christmas time, he heads to Mar-a-Lago, and I don't believe he comes back to Washington. I think he stays at Mar-a-Lago all the way through the inauguration. Cohen, who worked for Trump for years before turning on him in 2018, added that Trump was unlikely to attend the inauguration. He cannot let the camera look at him and basically pull down the curtain. That's, oh my God. He cannot let the camera look at him and basically look down the curtain and see the president that's standing beside. Cohen said that he is a loser and it is killing him. Since Trump can't accept losing, he had to fabricate a conspiracy theory to explain it. Donald Trump cannot accept the fact that he lost. Cohen said at another point in the interview, to him, it is tantamount to calling him a loser, which is the worst thing in the world that you can actually call him. As a result, Trump will fight the election's results. Trump will fight the election's results, even after leaving office. So let's be prepared for that. Trump, Giuliani, the Trump family will be around for a long time because they have a lot of support in this country. And they will continue to say this was stolen from them. He's going to start his own media company, says Cohen, noting that Trump wanted to launch one in 2015. Every day he's going to sow more chaos and more fake information disseminated out there in order to be a thorn in President-elect Biden's thigh. Cohen pleaded guilty to lying to Congress and to campaign finance violations for facilitating hush money payments on behalf of Trump to porn star Stormy Daniels and former Playboy model Karen McDougal. So he has his own credibility problems, Mr. Cohen does. He was sentenced to 3 years behind bars, but he's serving at home because of COVID. He was allowed to go home. So with that note, we're going to take another short break here in USA la Media, La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Christian Lacey controlando el tablero. Regresamos en un momento.
$150 over $90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Our hearts are made stronger by how we treat others.
Put her there.
The light you share can impact those around you, but so can the darkness.
Later, twerps.
Did Pete saying mean things bother you?
So when you reach out to another person, take a moment to consider how they will feel and let your heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
Señoras y oyentes, estamos de regreso aquí en la Mesa Redonda desde el corazón de la ciudad fraternal, from the city of brotherly love, where the final count contributed to Joe Biden's victory. I am a proud citizen of this country and of this city because we gave Biden the presidency. We were the first votes. I don't know, not the first votes. Philadelphia put him over the top. Philadelphia gave him Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania still not having an official final count, but enough votes from the city of brotherly love where 90% of the vote went to Joe Biden. 90%. Imagine that. So we gave, there was such joy in the streets. It was unbelievable. People were dancing. A celebration in Philadelphia. No joy in Mudville, however. I see there's, I'm not going to gloat. It's enough. There would not be so sad if this president had said from the start that he would have a transition, a peaceful transition, that he would accept defeat. But that's not what he's done. He's tweeting that the election is far from over. But here is the trouble. There are no grown-ups around the White House. There is no John Kelly general. There is no general, there was no grown-ups from the administration because he fired them all. Remember Rex Tillerson, who had been the CEO of Exxon, one of the biggest companies in the world. He left and he called the president a moron. It's something moron. John Kelly couldn't take it anymore. He was chief of staff. He resigned. There are no grown-ups around there. It's only his family and some people who will forever support Mr. Trump. So, my friend, Martin Pratt is on the phone. Welcome, Martin.
Welcome, Fernando.
I was here before you. You saw you are so on, but I still allow you to come on.
Well, did you hear about the bomb threat on our block? Well,
no.
Block, you don't live near me. Yeah, somebody threatened to blow up the YMCA, or was it YWCA, or whatever it is.
Wow.
Or Christian, because that was a voting center.
Oh, yes, right.
So they were going house to house, so I had to evacuate for a little bit and, try to be a reporter.
Was a fake threat, I suppose?
Of course. This is Philly.
Yeah.
They just don't understand how Philly works. This is not the South. We don't run. We just gawk.
Unbelievable.
Stand there and watch.
I don't know, man. But
is your beard getting longer? Did you? Fernando's beard has gotten longer.
I intend to look like one of the biblical prophets.
I thought so. Barnabas, Fernando Barnabas. Ah, are you well rested from the
I
any
am not
hangover
well
from the weekend?
rested.
I know you were partying all weekend.
Look, Martin, I did not sleep Tuesday night. I did not sleep Wednesday night,
Yeah,
Thursday night,
yeah.
and not until
That's so
Friday
crazy.
was I able to breathe
Yeah,
comfortably.
yeah. It's
Unbelievable.
I don't think any election in the history of this country has been this last 100 years, maybe to say.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I wasn't around the last 100 years, even though I might look like I was, but no, I was not.
Yeah, it's definitely. Now we got to do the same thing for Georgia. So
Yes, yes, we need those two senators. That would be
we are
amazing.
going to do it, Fernando.
That would be amazing. We need to send money to whoever needs the money. I don't know who's going to.
Well, also Fernando, we to really in Atlanta specifically, Metro Atlanta, there are a number of Latinos. I'm going to get the statistics, the demographics rather breakdown, but definitely I've been in the Latino community and it's far away from center of the city, but they have a lot of flourishing businesses and of course real estate, where you rent rooms to contractors and stuff like that. But there's a huge community there. I think that's not compared. Well, it might be comparative to Philadelphia. I got to do the numbers. But my point was, we need you to record a message. They need the editor of El Sol saying,
I would
"Come
love
on."
to.
They need the editor of El Sol saying, "Come on, we did our part in Philadelphia.
No, I'm not with the
Mexicans,
Soul now,
Colombians,
but
Dominicans,
I
Puerto
am
Ricans.
with
Now
Usala.
we pass it to you."
We have a magazine, we have a radio show, and we're going to have a television show. We are going to be a very important media company. So we're on our way. So yeah, I identify more with Usala than any other outfit in the city. So here we are. Um, I was going to say this. Axios reports that the president is going to attend rallies at which he will brandish obituaries of people who supposedly voted, intended to support his contention that there were a lot of illegal votes cast.
So, did you see Bill Maher's show on Friday?
No, I did not. I have it taped. I have it recorded.
Yeah, please let's discuss that tomorrow. It's really interesting. The lady behind the Transition Integrity Project,
Yeah,
and Malcolm Nance were his guests in the seat. But before that, there was one of the think tanks that was in the documentary Social Dilemma was the main. It was a very good show, not because of Bill Maher, because he kept interrupting the guy who really was trying to tell us the psychological effects. I've been blaming No Child Left Behind, but he actually made some very good points about 10 years of social media and what it's done to people's brains. So it's interesting.
By the way, let me interrupt for a second here. For our listeners who don't know, this is Martin Pratt, and Martin is an expert in social media. That's one of the reasons he comes on this show to explain things to us that we don't understand. So Martin lives in Philadelphia. He lives not far from Rittenhouse Square. But he's
Basically Fernando's neighbor.
Knowledgeable. He's a very knowledgeable person in terms of social media. So I trust what you bring to us and to that respect. So what was your point about the person who?
Well, the lady behind the Transition Integrity Project, she agreed that social media has affected people, but her point was what I thought was interesting, is that she's like, I'm definitely a doomsday person, but she's felt that the Republicans in power, not so much Mr. McConnell, but everybody else is like, look, we're tired of this guy. You know, we we don't have they've already got their jobs for the next 6 years, so there's no benefit for them going with the Trump train, right? That's going to happen if it truly is going to happen. Because I also think he's trolling all of us, and that's the only thing he has left is to try to trigger people. And for him to be relevant, he still needs, he has a huge ego that needs to be fed. So that wasn't being fed the last 2 days. It wasn't Trump, Trump. It was Biden, Biden, Biden. and we did it, and that song FDT. So
Yeah.
that was a very popular song in my neighborhood. Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. It's all I heard people playing.
Oh boy.
Stuff and the car horns. But seriously, I don't think that while he may try to do that, and I watched Mitt Romney's conversation on Meet the Press, and he tried his best to be, in the middle. But at the end of the day, he was like, the facts are facts, and specifically like in Georgia or Arizona, these are Republican officials.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her point also. The officials that are in charge of the elections are Republicans.
Oh, I know.
So,
yeah.
the Republicans allowed, and if that's the case, wouldn't that mean they affected your votes too?
Right, exactly.
Like they only allowed Biden, people who wanted to vote for Biden, be voters that are not fraudulent.
Yeah, but since you brought this up, Martin, the two people who are now in contention in Georgia for the Senate, Raphael Warnock is one, the other one is John Ossoff. So those people need our support. Raphael Warnock, if you want to look it up, and John Ossoff, OSSOF, vote, whatever you can do for them, send money, support them, find out how to
retweet, Facebook, Instagram them.
Yes.
Yeah, just pass on the word. Find somebody in your network who has a family member in Georgia and make sure they vote in this runoff.
Yep, because we need this to become. Imagine that. That would be the who would have the final vote in case there's a tie.
We definitely need it. And John Ossoff was just on said it really well. He said we can't govern. If we're going to get ourselves out of this pandemic, and then MSNBC had a reporter in Georgia, and as she was saying, people are tired. They were fatigued of all the ads. This morning, that same reporter that reported at like Friday or Thursday went around and she talked to two women who were just random people sitting on a bench, and she asked them, "Were they tired?" They're like, "No, we got to get." And both of them, unfortunately, had family members that died from COVID, so they both were concerned that there's not going to be enough advertisement and there's not going to be a connection to, if we don't get these two in, Biden can't do what he needs to do. Exactly. So that was interesting. So I think that, we got to get them in, and so that there can be a governance.
Right. Otherwise, it will be like the second part of the Obama administration where nothing could be done because Moscow Mitch intervened.
David Perdue said yesterday he's going to raise $500 million. That's what Perdue is saying he needs to raise.
Okay.
That's crazy.
COVID-19, two things about this. There's the Biden government is going to deal with this with a scientific panel. I already spoke about that before you came on. Number two, the stock market reacting in a very positive way to the election, and also to the fact that there's a vaccine that might prove effective from Pfizer, 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 a vaccine that might prove at this point 90% effective, and that could be one of those things that would help us to find a remedy for COVID. So,
we just gotta watch Pfizer. They did try to pull a fast one before earlier this year. So we've got to just be really careful with these vaccines and just watch. The look. Our family members that want to take the vaccine really have to really research that, and maybe have some doctors on to talk about the what could happen.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to have a vaccine until you take it, Martin, and then I'll look.
I'm not going to take it till you take it, Fernando. Well, you know what? I think that one of the things that will happen in Philadelphia, at least, we've been really blessed to have a really good hospital system here, and have a pretty on it health department. I think they're going to, probably have tests, studies, and will explain to us that we've had so-and-so at Jefferson, so-and-so at Penn, so-and-so at Temple. I don't think that Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is one of the cities that the CDC came to talk about This is actually one of the cities that has deployed a vaccine before successfully.
Anyway, Martin, I'm sorry to say that we have reached the end of this edition of Usala Media, the Roundtable. Just one final note, a sort of sad note. Alex Trebek, the host of Jeopardy, died over the weekend from pancreatic.
Rest in peace, Alex. He can rest well now. He knows that Biden won.
Yeah, he was the host forever. I mean, he's from the
37 years.
Yeah. So, but we have a new president and we should be ready to celebrate. Thank you for calling, Martin. Please stay in touch.
Okay.
Señores oyentes de USA la Media, muchas gracias por su sintonía en el día de hoy. Se despide Fernando Méndez. Christian Lacey controlando el tablero. Estuvo con nosotros Martin Pratt por teléfono. Los esperamos hasta la próxima.